All right, what's going on, everybody? I think I just start ripping here. Let's see. There we go. All right, perfect. Yep. So let's start ripping here. What's going on, everybody? My name is Kyle Yee. I'll just kind of start off by giving a brief introduction about myself. I've been in the business here about a year and a half. So I've been kind of working in sales for the last couple of years, but been specifically doing life insurance with FFL for the last year and a half. I started actually um, in my junior year of college. I ended up dropping out of USC, University of Southern California here in LA. And I started full time actually pretty much after I made my first sale. I really got my first deposit for my first sale. And ever since, obviously, I've been pretty much all in full time into the business. So that's been the last year and a half. Now, obviously, this is a builder's call and a builder's workshop. So I'll kind of touch on that a little bit more. But in terms of like my backstory and kind of getting into sales, I had done an internship in sales my freshman year of college. Well, it wasn't really much of an internship. It was really just a full on sales job. I'd worked in door to door and then made the transition, a year and a half or 2 years later obviously to this after working a corporate internship and then didn't really like it too much. So I ended up coming over to work here with Jacob Gardner and Caitlin Gardner here in FFL. And I've loved it. And it's been the best decision I've ever made. So with that said, obviously for me and our team, we've been on a pretty big trajectory the last year, I'd say. So I started this business, yeah, like I said, about convention, I would say about convention time last year. So that would be convention 2024. That was like really my first introduction to this business. And I had pretty much no idea what I was getting myself into. All I was told was by Jacob Gardner to show up at convention, and I'd figure it out from there. So that's what I did is I showed up and obviously was pretty mesmerized by like the power of this industry and really the success stories of some of the people within this industry. So I, obviously, was pretty inspired by that and went full time. Really, my first I'd say about 5, 6 months really just went hard at sales. So I had a little bit of sales experience. I had a little bit of entrepreneur experience, but not a ton. So spent really those first few months, I would say 5, 6 months, really just devoting myself to sales. Um, and it was working. It was working well. I was doing, 20 for me at that point in my life. I mean, all I cared about was paying my bills. I had a huge amount of debt, for college that I owed. And then I obviously had, I mean, LA is not a cheap city, so I had an expensive rent. So I devoted myself pretty hard to just focusing on my sales and obviously just learning this business, the ins and outs. But ultimately, I wasn't, really satisfied, I would say, with just, doing the sales side, right? I mean, obviously, I don't think you come into this particular business and this particular opportunity just to sell, right? There's plenty of sales jobs in the world where you can just sell and that's all you need to do. But for true entrepreneurs, I feel like this is the best opportunity there actually is because it's an entrepreneur opportunity because you can actually build a business, have an exit plan, and then obviously have passive streams of income. So after I'd say, yeah, those first 5, 6 months, it's really about this month last year to give some insights. Well, this is August, so I guess it's September last year. That's when I actually had my first, person I'd brought into the business start actually producing. So this time last year, I believe we did like 37,000 as a team, and like 35 of it was me. So just for perspective on like where we were over the last 11 months, yeah, about 37,000 as a team about 11 months ago. Okay, so I had, obviously taken some calls. I had listened to obviously Jacob. Jay Masco was another huge mentor of mine who I constantly blew up his phone just kind of looking for advice. And, obviously I took that advice and tried to implement as best as possible. Definitely failed a couple times, but finally, about September last year, I had my first person who's actually one of my college roommates, Webb Hayes. Um, he went, full time with me into the business. And so September last year was his really first month producing. I think we did 37K. Like I said, 2 months ago, we did 400,000 as a team, and this month we'll probably do close to 500,000. So terms of the growth and success of the team, obviously we've been on a pretty exponential track over the last year and a half, or sorry, not year and a half, really just 11 months. So a part of, aside from just obviously, the building side and obviously the recruitment side of this business, for me, the big reason I wanted to start building a business was actually my motivation to just get better at sales. So transparently, if you're in this business, you can make a really good living just selling. You can make a great living. Like I was doing fine. I was making 10, 15 a month, somewhere in that range, at least every month, maybe a 20 a month in there. And, honestly, that's all you really need if that's what your goal is. Now, my goal was quite a bit bigger than that, but that's all I really need. And I knew, like, for me, it kind of is like, obviously, I don't have a kids or, family, or I do have a family, but I don't have my own like kids or anything like that. But I kind of looked at, obviously building is that extra responsibility to kind of get better at sales. It's kind of like that extra motivation. So the way I looked at it was this: if I wanted to get better at sales, I obviously had to have somebody, that I was teaching at the same time. Because there's, going back to like school, right? When I, was in calculus, for example, right? The way I knew to get better at calculus was by actually going and teaching somebody else how to do calculus. It's kind of a weird formula, but it's the way, at least for me, I knew I could learn the quickest, right? So what I kind of did was I, obviously really focused on helping out other people, and my sales numbers went up exponentially. So like I said, my biggest month ever at that point in time was September. It was the first time I was actually leading somebody, and they were full time with me because I felt that obligation that, hey, I've told this person this opportunity is all that, right? I've told them that this is the greatest thing I've seen in terms of sales, in terms of business. It's not even a complicated business, super simple business. You just have, it's not a hard business, it's just hard work, right? So that's all I explained to them. So obviously I knew that I had to go above and beyond to make sure that I was leading properly, in terms of not just obviously, telling them about, how good the business was and, helping them out with the sales side, but obviously leading from the front in terms of obviously my personal numbers, my personal sales, quite literally sitting right next to them selling, 5K a day, 10K a day, in terms of sales, right? Because that's what wakes people up in this business. They're like, holy shit, you just made 10 grand in one day. Like I've never even seen someone make 10 grand in a month is already nuts. It's like one day, you just sat down, you're freaking at home in a condo in LA, and you're just sitting there and making a bunch of sales, right? So that wakes people up, right? So for me, my biggest month, right, September at that point. 2 months later, I did 70,000 IP, right? So for me, getting better at the business meant I just kept bringing more people in, because what happens is I just kept feeling that obligation that, hey, I got to lead these people. And it always, I think what I've seen with every top producer we've brought in is it's always the same formula. Now we have a lot of guys, every single one of our top guys had almost zero sales experience previously, right? And it really is a testimony to um, the work ethics and the culture that we have tried to establish within our team, because a lot of these guys had, nothing previously, were either, college, and unemployed, or even some of them had serving jobs, maybe even some of them had corporate jobs, some of them were former investment bankers, right? But for all of them, it's that the correlation factor between all of our top guys is just the fact that they, came in, they're plugging into a system and a work environment that obviously has that culture that, like, hey, if we want to be good at this, we got to lead from the front, right? So that was, the biggest change I would say that, like, over the last 11 months we really made, was actually going all in on that mindset that, hey, if I want to grow something big here, there's no other way than to lead from the front and constantly set that example. So I'll give another example of that. A lot of people on our team know, like, my non-negotiable is a sale a day. Now that might not seem like much because we don't stop at one, of course, but what happens with that non-negotiable is even on your worst day when you're getting beat to smithereens, you think you're going to bagel for the day, it's, you're going to get that sale no matter what. Otherwise, you're working till 11 o'clock at night, right? You might get on at 7, but you're still working till 11 because you are going to hit that sale. It doesn't matter if you're traveling that day. I mean, there's plenty of days I'm traveling to Hawaii for a lock-in, I'm going to Florida for a lock-in, and I only have 5 hours in that day to get that sale. But what it does is it psychs your mind out. It's kind of like playing sports when you're in high school. It psychs your mind that, like, hey, I know I have practice at 6 and I know I have work at 3, right? I have, this homework assignment, this exam tomorrow. I have to fit this in, right? And you'll actually work way more diligently. So for me, it's like setting that non-negotiable standard for the team was super, super important. So that's what, we've really focused on. And that's why I tell a lot of our guys, from day one is, if you want to get good at this business, set that as non-negotiable, right? If you want to be really good and you want to inspire a lot of people and you want to lead, right, you have to have a non-negotiable as one day. I would so much rather have somebody that comes into the business and writes 20K, but they write 20K getting a sale every single day than somebody that writes 30K and they only work 5 days of the month, right? Because you'll never, I mean, you can do it, right? This is a good business. Like, you can do it. You can only work 5 days. I mean, I could probably at this point, with like the sales skills and the knowledge I have now, I could probably work 5 days of the month and make 30,000. But the truth is, if you want to be a leader and a person that's going to develop other people, you got to set that example day in, day out. That's duplicatable. So that's probably the biggest thing that I learned was, hey, no matter what, everything else has to go push to the side. I tell everybody, if you have stuff you got to take care of, put it on Sunday, right? Nothing else comes in the work week other than this business. And you're devoting that time and that, obviously repetition to this business for whatever amount of time that is. So Monday through Saturday for a lot of us, right? And then Sunday's that day off, you're taking that time. And it's not really a day off for me. It's like more of a figuring out the systems, obviously what's working, what's not, kind of meeting with some of the other guys, maybe not as much sales focused, but obviously taking that day is like that, day I'm focusing on a couple other things that are externally related to the business. But ultimately, if you're making a sale a day and your guys consistently see you doing that and obviously consistently see you leading, they're going to follow those same habits that you're implementing. So that was probably the biggest change I made. Now, obviously, we're a team that's doing pretty good numbers, right? So probably we're at 250,000 through week 2 this month. So we'll probably be close to 500,000 for this month. Now, on top of that, we have a ridiculous amount of people we onboarded. We just had an event in LA for, our first office opening. Office is obviously very important. We just have another one that kind of opened up there in Florida with a bunch of our guys that kind of just recruited a huge health team. Yeah, there's John right there. He's, a big part of that. But, we have that. And, obviously it all started with just getting that first office. So kind of taking that leap of faith. I mean, we were only doing 250,000 a month when we opened this office. So sometimes people will say it's like premature, but it's taking that leap, obviously, that you're going to build in within that office. You're going to, obviously, it's like a new obligation to you. It's like, shoot, I'm paying rent for this office. Might as well get a bunch of people to come in here and work with us, right? I mean, what we're doing is pretty incredible. So, might as well. I mean, our average age of our guys is 21 or 22. So, in terms of that, getting an office, it's like, oh, you got a bunch of 21 and 22-year-old guys in there. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, people are swiping up, from my college, people are swiping up from anywhere really. And they're like, what the heck is this? It's like, now you have an office. It's like, what is going on here? It was cool watching it from home, but now it's like, what the heck? These guys have an office. This is starting to seem like really legit, and it is legit, but obviously having a, office really establishes that. Where in LA, it's in downtown LA. It's right next to, I'll even show you. It's literally right next to like the fashion district. Um, so it's really cool to have that kind of scene where not only are you able to get in person with our guys, because big thing of what we did is we got our guys in person a lot. But now it's like even people that I had talked to previously, right? People that I had spoken with months ago that were like, yeah, it sounds cool. Now they see it's an office and they're like, well, okay, wait, this is legit. This is like bigger than what we expected. It's growing at a crazy rate. And everyone's like, what? Like a little bit more mesmerized by just the whole process and system. So getting an office was huge for us. It obviously holds everybody to a different level of accountability, and it holds everybody to a certain standard. Plus, if you get an office, you better throw a freaking whiteboard in that office, or at least like a TV that has like a leaderboard, because it's really cool. Obviously it's cool and all if you have like a group meeting and you're posting like, oh, like leaderboards, whatever. But it's even cooler when everybody has to walk in and walk right by that whiteboard, and they're seeing, some of the top guys just dropping massive numbers, right? 15. We had a guy, Luke, right? He wrote 37,000 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. Right? You just look at his name on the whiteboard and it's going freaking forever. It's like sales, 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 sales. It's like, and it's like you can't even count that many sales in like 10 seconds. Like it was ridiculous, just bam, 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 bam. But you walk by that every day, you walk into the office and everyone's like, okay, yeah, I gotta pick it up. So it's not only been a great sense of accountability for the team, it's really built credibility. On top of the fact that it's a great marketing tool, in addition to, all of that. But in terms of building, obviously for us, and what I preach is social media. I don't think that's necessarily uncommon. I think that's probably, something that most people already know. But obviously it's the standards we set with social media. So social media is probably gonna be your best tool. I took this from Jay, obviously social media is your modern day resume, right? So social media being your modern day resume, if you want people to believe in what you're doing and obviously see what you're doing consistently, the best form of credibility in business is, that consistency behind it. So we obviously, preach that marketing and the lifestyle that you live, because end of the day, when you start making ridiculous money in this business, you're going to up your lifestyle. That's just like typical sales knowledge. Like if you're making good money, sales guys love to go splurge. They love their nice cars, they love their nice dinners, right? So we're no different in that sense. It's just the way we market it is super strong, right? So if we're going on the team trip, right, we're making sure we're getting a ton of marketing. We're doing obviously different types of photos. We're obviously, for our event, if you go check out my Instagram, right, we had, some really cool reels that we dropped, right? And those kinds of things, eventually they're going to really explode for you. And in addition, what's going to happen is, just how like on a resume, people can backlog, your past experiences. Same thing with social media, right? If you have a bunch of posts on your social media, you have like a team of, bunch of guys, they're all dressed up nice and all of that good stuff, right? They're going to see that as a form of credibility. And it's like, okay, like this is cool. Like there's other people that are doing this. There's a bunch of people seeing success, right? It's kind of like that resume that you're really establishing over time, where you're obviously having a bunch of people that are coming to you and they're like, okay, like I've seen it, now I kind of see like that credibility, that resume side of things. I have some questions, right? And the first one's always, can I do it? Can I duplicate it, right? And luckily, if you have the right systems, they can, right? And systems is kind of like a vague word. I would really say the right culture, right? Um, Now, obviously, a couple things I'll touch on the social media side of things, right? For us, I mean, no matter how big you are, I don't think this is ever going to change. Sending out messages, right? So if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Instagram, Instagram's by far my favorite, sending out those 50 messages a day, right? That's a huge thing that I preach, right? People can come to you and they might be interested. And, that's obviously if you get warm messages in your DMs, yeah, those people are going to convert very well. But if you're new and you don't have a team that's doing 500,000 a month, right, you're probably not going to have as many warm messages. Because I'll tell you, I sure as hell didn't. I was posting for 6 months probably before I got my first warm message. It was honestly when I started, it's very cliche, but it was probably when I actually got my Porsche that I started getting a little bit more messages. And then the office was obviously another form of credibility. And I got a little bit more messages. And honestly, I'm still probably not at the same point that a lot of, the big guys are going to be at, where they're getting constantly 10, 15 guys reaching out to them a day, like, hey, I want to get into this, right? I'm probably not even at that point yet. But it's getting a little bit easier just because I've built my credibility, because I've been posting for, over a year now about the business and lifestyle, right? Lifestyle is way more important in my opinion than posting about the business, because it's really cool and all. You can post like 5K today, move, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, nobody knows what that means. You can post your IP report, but nobody's probably going to know what that means. If you're not in the business, you're going to be like, what the heck is this? You're probably, your interactions can be terrible because everyone's going to skip through your story. Right. But you have to post a lifestyle in addition to it. So good rule of thumb, 80-20 rule, 80% lifestyle, 20% business. So that's another thing that we'll preach a lot is you got it. If you're marketing on social media, you got to do it right, right? Because nobody cares if you're just posting a 5K move every time, once a week. It's like nobody's ever going to swipe up. Like nobody cares that much. So that's a big thing for us that we're constantly preaching is obviously you're building up that resume with the lifestyle with obviously the sales results that back it, right? So in terms of, building a business, building, credibility, building and establishing your personal brand, right? You're going to want to do those kinds of things in order to obviously not just build this business, but really, I think a bigger thing is that personal brand behind it because people don't want to work with you just because of your sales numbers. And I've learned that the hard way. I was like, when I did 70,000 a month, I didn't have 40,000 people swiping up on my story. People wanted to work with me because it's like, okay, well, this guy's going to the gym. He's obviously, has people behind him. He's leading people. He has people reposting him. Like that's why people want to work with you is because it's like not just because you're good at the business, right? Just because you know how to sell doesn't mean people are going to necessarily just want to learn from you, right? They want to see the whole encompassing, they want to see the whole 9 yards, right? They want to see everything that you're doing outside of just the sales side. They want to see, you have a track record that is bigger than just posting a sale and saying, hey, I made cool commission, right? Because anyone can do that. This isn't a normal opportunity. This is not a just sales job, right? I'm sure you guys follow door-to-door guys where they say they made 9 freaking sales and made freaking $400 or whatever, those pest control guys do, right? I'm sure you guys follow some of those people, but if their lifestyle doesn't match up with that, if they're not, going to team lock-ins on the beach and, have, gym workouts with 30 guys, right? The lifestyle is not going to really match up and nobody's ever going to care, right? So you always have to have both. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned because trust me, when I had 70,000, I thought the world was going to swipe up. I literally was like, man, I'm a freaking baller. I'm number 10 in the company. I'm a G. Nah, nobody swiped up. I mean, maybe like 3 people, and I genuinely mean that. It was when my life started to actually match up. It was literally when I started to, I was doing these fun things and it wasn't just like me doing the fun things. It's like the team, because we work really cohesively as a team. That's probably one of the biggest beauties of our team is we work really cohesively together. We still have meetings every Monday, Wednesday, Friday together as a team. We get the whole team on. We're doing at least a role play on that meeting. And then obviously we're going even above and beyond. We're doing other updates, these kinds of things. But we work really cohesively a team and we're getting together a lot, right? We literally, we were just in Colombia. Now we were in Vegas last week. We're going to be doing another one in LA in 2 weeks. We're going to Palm Beach, obviously, for Ignite and next month, but that cohesive nature as a team really keeps us together. Not only builds credibility, but it builds loyalty, right? Obviously, our guys are bought in, as they're as bought in as me, right? Which is something that you have to really work towards is that you're getting people on the same envisionment that you have. Because typically that leader is going to have, if you're a leader in this business, you're going to have a huge vision, right? A huge, massive vision. And it's the hardest part is getting people bought in on that same vision because nobody's going to care more about your baby than than you will, right? So if you want other people to do that, you have to do those things outside. You have to obviously have that lifestyle that it's not just the designer things, not just the Louis, it's cool if you can post a picture in a Louis Vuitton store, but it's even cooler if you can go to the gym with 30 guys in the middle in a beach town and sell 100,000 in a day. And you got all these dudes on a, whiteboard and a leaderboard. And like that kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that people get bought into. And obviously the designers, the cars, right? All of that stuff is like a side note. It's cool, but really people want to buy into your culture. So I'm a huge believer in culture over compensation. And then outside of that, for us, obviously, it's really just building that kind of culture that people can plug into and get in with at the same level we have established and worked really hard at. So I've gone over this one a couple times on a couple of calls I've been on, but I think the biggest thing, and we're going to drop a video on this actually, I just filmed it with Andrew Taylor last week, is our 90-day expectation guide. And the 90 days, it's the first 90 days you come into this business. You need at least 90 days. If you quit in your first 90 days, you're pretty much just a quitter. There's literally no reason you should be quitting in your first 90 days of any opportunity, but especially this one because it's an entrepreneurial opportunity. So first 90 days, we have a huge, well, it's not even huge, it's 3 pages. We keep it, I mean, this business isn't complicated. We keep it pretty simple. But first 90 days, we have this expectation guide where it's obviously a expectation guide to guide you through the first 90 days and what you should expect, and more so the habits that you're going to have to, buy in and get bought into to really be successful in this business. And obviously, I'll go over a couple of them. There's a video we'll drop here in a few weeks that's going to go over it way more in depth. But beyond just that, getting bought in on, freaking insurance and annuities, it's more so like, that personal development side of things. So obviously, one of our things is reading 10 pages a day. Stole that from the 75 hard challenge, right? So reading 10 pages a day, hitting the gym every day. Obviously reading, reading through, or sorry, not reading, listening to our audio recordings. Making it's 150 leads a day minimum, 300 dials a day minimum, right? Those kind of expectations we have. And then obviously on top of that, your goals, 10K a week AP, becoming a sales manager in the first 90 days, reading those books, obviously talking to 5 new people a week about the business, those kind of habits, and then the expectations that they not only saw from social media. Now there's a expectation guide where hopefully this person is, changing their habits because they're getting actually bought into the culture that we've built and established these last 11 months so that they can obviously implement and obviously see, the results to be successful in this business. So on top of everything, right, we have a really good guide, for people that we work with to come in, plug into, and obviously start to see those results really quickly. Because I think big thing with this business is we get paid fast, right? So get your guys paid quickly is the key, right? I mean, these guys can make whatever they want. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say any numbers, but they can make really good money their first month, right? So anyone can plug into it. Like I said, most of our top guys had zero sales experience before this, like literally zero. We had guys from corporate jobs, we had guys from, unemployedness, and we had people from serving restaurants and bars or whatever the heck. And we have the whole 9 yards, right? And our top guys had like almost zero sales experience. It's really just having an expectation. We have the call recordings, we have the results, we have a proven system, right? All of that is going to really establish your credibility first off, but second off, it's also going to really help guide someone that's coming in their first 90 days to actually have a blueprint that they can follow, that's a trial and tribulation of the people that had done this before them. And it's not even like a complicated, it's literally, it should be kind of common sense. It's literally like, hey, you're in a business opportunity, not a sales opportunity. So for us, full time is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m, nothing less, right? That shouldn't be like crazy to even say. It's a business opportunity, right? This isn't a sales job, right? So 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's our full-time schedule minimum. Some of us are going to work 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. though, right? So keep in mind, that's like the expectation, but some people are going to go above and beyond those expectations. So 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? And at the end of the day, right, you're just plugging in, you're going to the gym, right? That should be like a non-negotiable. That should be super easy to, hit. You should be reading. You should want to get better at life, not just business, like life, right? So lifestyle habits. And then on top of that, right, obviously you're encompassing it all, and it's going to make you better at sales. It's going to make you a better person. It's going to develop your mind. It's going to obviously help you become a better person. And I think that that's what people look up to the most about some of our, biggest leaders is that they're not just here to sell. I mean, they are, but they're also here to develop themselves and become better people, obviously, and indulge in the habits that the people before them had it also indulged into, and really brought to life with just non-negotiables that they had for themselves, and obviously personal development expectations. But yeah, if you guys have some questions, I mean, I can go more in depth in a couple of those things. If you want to put them in I guess probably putting them in the chat's the easiest way. Oh, there's a couple already, but yeah, if you have more questions, if you want to put them in the chat. um, Okay, all right, so share your resources that you use to find new recruits. Um, so finding new recruits is pretty simple, honestly. So I mean, honestly, if you're posting lifestyle, plus business, constantly on social media, you're going to have people, like I said, reach out to you. Now, obviously, like I mentioned, 50 DMs a day is kind of like my standard, my non-negotiable. So in terms of finding new people, I mean, a lot of the times it's just scrolling through the likes of it's gonna sound funny, it's scrolling through the likes of a lot of pages that I like, so whether it's a gym guy, it's another sales guy, or even just finding some, a page that has, a lot of insurance salespeople and scrolling through the likes and just sending them a message like, hey, I see you're working in sales, or hey, I see you do this, it's whether it's going to the gym. We're a huge advocate of that as well. We have, we work in this opportunity, you make 10, 15,000 a month your first month, are you open to a 5-minute call? Right. So a lot of times it's actually just going and finding these people on Instagram or LinkedIn, for example. Cutco I'll give you a big hint. There's, a lot of people that, work at this, knife company where they make 10% commission. So that's probably a good one to hit. But it doesn't work. I promise you, it won't work unless you have the lifestyle, you have the resume on your Instagram already. People are just not, your response rate's gonna be terrible. So I think more important than anything is actually having that response rate. If you want your response rate to be good, you have to have a cool lifestyle behind it. You have to have sales results. You have to have this Instagram. You don't have to, but it's going to help you a lot more so if you have that. So even if you don't, right, obviously just getting consistently posting about the business, consistently posting about things you're doing. It doesn't even have to be going to Nobu on Friday, right? It can be little things that people get bought into. But in my opinion, if you're going and outreaching and reaching out to these people, right, the first thing, I mean, at least I don't know about you guys, but the first thing I do when someone DMs me, if I even, respond, right, is I go check their Instagram. When I was looking for college roommates, I went to USC, right? So when I was looking for college roommates, I had a bunch of people, I was on this USC page. It was like new people, blah, 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 blah. You know how I found my college roommate? I scrolled through each Instagram that DM me. And I basically picked the coolest looking Instagram because I'm like, okay, this guy does things I like. He goes to the gym. He, does media. He, has an interesting life. He has like this, and it kind of creates that interest, right? So I think, like I said, if you want to be really successful with cold outreach, you have to have a great Instagram resume behind it. So that's what I would do there. How would you handle setting coming into an office standard, creating culture, and producing agents that you want to work from home to change their mindset? Um, I don't think you'll ever like I've learned this the hard and easy way. I don't think you're ever going to change someone's habits unless you're doing it yourself. So, with this office, right? A big thing, I'm going to show up at, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. latest every single day, right? And if people want to get to your level, they're going to follow the habits that you're already setting. So setting that standard yourself is number one, right? Because you can tell somebody be in the office, 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 and they are only going to do it if they see you doing it first and getting the results from doing it. So changing their mindset, yeah, you can try. But the only way, at least I've learned, that's been super successful is doing it myself. And constantly setting that example, setting that tone. First one, I mean, it's if you play sports, it's the same thing in sports, right? I was the team captain of a lot of my sports teams, right? First one there, last one to leave, right? That was it, right? I was always the first one there. I was the last one to leave, right? And it's setting that example. And guess what? People will follow. Just how like I would show up to practice 30 minutes before practice even started, 45 minutes before practice even started. Yeah, sometimes you'll get a couple guys that will trickle with you. They'll start seeing that you're setting that example, that you're there 30, 45 minutes before you're even supposed to be there, and that you're getting better and you're setting that example for the team. Same exact thing here in business. I take a lot of analogies from sports to business. What is an example of messages you send out? Yeah, so it just depends on the person. It's a lot of times it's curating to the person I'm looking at. So whether they're a gym person, salesperson, or even a corporate person, just kind of curating. But sometimes it's as simple as just asking if they're in sales, right? Just sparking a conversation. I like to keep it short. That's the other thing I will say. I don't like these 4 paragraph messages. How many of you guys have probably responded to a 4 paragraph message that you got in a cold DM? I'll tell you, almost never. I mean, if you're actually a busy person, you don't have time to just read a freaking 4 paragraph message about, this person. Oh, we started this new IMO, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm like, all right, later. If someone sends you like one question, it's like, okay, well, what does this person want? Creates more curiosity. So that's it. Yeah. Oh, John even responded there too. Okay. 90 days is all it takes. Is there any way people outside of your team can listen to a couple of recordings? Yeah, I mean, what I'll do is I can cut up a couple of those recordings and I don't know who, I'm sure I can ask somebody to send them to. Um and they can probably send it to you, Heather. So yeah, I can definitely do that. Um, Luke, yeah, there we go. 19K deposit in the month. That's badass. Let's go, brother. Recruiting DM script. Yeah, it's so like I've gone over this one a couple times. It just kind of depends on the person. Good word track is literally, are you in sales? Um, do you use a dialer? I do use a dialer. Yeah. So when you are getting to those, 70, 80,000, IP months, in my opinion, like a dialer, if you're building a team, a dialer is absolutely a necessity. If you want to get to those crazy months and build a team behind you, because you obviously your time is money, in that sense. So I have had a dialer for over a year. I've absolutely loved it. It saves me so much time. It obviously holds me really accountable because guess what? When I started this business, I wasn't the same person I am now. I was not going to gym at 5:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and being on the phones by 7, right? I would go to the gym at maybe like 8 and then be on the phones by 9. But guess what? If I have a 7 a.m. appointment, you best believe, I mean, I'm paying for this freaking appointment. I might as well be there. So you best believe I had to change my habits to be there. So I think dialers are really, really good if you're actually an accountable person and you're using it as a tool to not be lazy and just get out of dialing. Because best believe, if I have 8 appointments that all no show, I'm still dialing that day. So you can't use it as a tool to be lazy, but you can use it as a tool to buy back your time. And that's what I preach because that's what's worked for me is I'm buying back my time with a dialer. Um, all right. What are you listening to or reading for your personal development? So I'll give you 3 books. So the first one is going to be The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. The second one's going to be The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. I'll actually give you 4. The third one's going to be Atomic Habits by I forgot who. And the fourth one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. So those are 3 to 4 books I always recommend a new agent to read getting into sales. Now, trust me, if this person just reads the book, and half of these people half-ass read the book, it's going to do nothing for them. You have to actually implement half these habits. You can know a bunch of cool facts, but nobody cares about cool facts unless you're playing trivia, right? We're not in a game where we're playing trivia. We're in a game where we're obviously selling, we're building, and we're developing. So if you want someone to actually listen and learn from those same habits and obviously develop there personally, they actually have to actually implement those same habits. So those books are great. Audio recordings. The Alex Hormozy podcast is a really good podcast. Andy Frisella podcast is another great podcast. And I would encourage people to listen to them in the gym. Knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. So if you're someone that goes to the gym on a regular basis, you know how you can make your time more efficient is literally just plugging into a podcast or an audio recording or an audiobook that you can actually listen to in the gym at the same time. So you're knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. In addition to that, I would say, even if you're, really persistent and listen to music in the gym, it helps you get a better pump just when you're in the car, right? If you're driving to an office, if you're driving anywhere, listen to that kind of stuff when you're in the car. Always try and knock out 2 birds with 1 stone on that personal development side, because obviously your time is still money. Most of your day should be devoted to business. You're doing these side things I'm talking about should not come in the way of business, right? If you're working 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., I'm not saying 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. that you're taking time to personally develop in those hours. I'd rather you work from 8 to 8 and take those personal development hours outside of those hours, because you should not have personal development come in the way of business, because business is number 1, personal development is number 2, in my opinion. And so make sure that if you're doing that, you're obviously taking the time outside of business hours to do so, right? If you have someone like a new agent that's like, oh, I'm taking the day to listen to audio. That's probably one of my least favorite things in the entire world is when they're like, yeah, I'm not selling today. I'm just taking the day to listen to audio recordings. You're not really getting better as a person. That should take place outside of it. I'll tell you this, when I started this business and I, dropped out of college, I was screwed, right? So I had to really figure out how to get this business to work quickly. So I literally used to go to sleep every single night, 2 AirPods in, every single night. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and I would have two AirPods in. I'd listen to an audio recording of a mentor or someone else on our team, and I'd listen to it, and I'd listen to it every single night. I'd listen to a new one every single night. I hounded people to get their audio recordings, just to get better at sales. So don't take that time outside of, you're only taking personal development hours outside of business hours. It still should be a non-negotiable, but it should be outside of business hours. Good budget for leads for new agents. Depends. So for example, I have I had some new agents that come in and absolutely rip off the bat. And, obviously I'm not saying a budget on them necessarily. I'll tell you this, I do get new agents leads Mondays and Thursdays, at a bare minimum. So we have a lead program that we kind of do for a lot of our team. So Mondays, Thursdays, bare minimum. But trust me, if this person's writing 2, 3 policies a day, why the hell am I going to hold them back? I'm going to invest more into them as well. So it's not like I have like a one budget. You kind of figure that one out as it's just like doing the work. You just kind of try, and then you'll kind of figure it out along the ways. Oh yeah, I saw you in Vegas. Awesome. How do you pay your dialer? So I pay her, so I pay her flat, already. And then anything over 4 sales a week, I'll give her a bonus for. So it's like every sale over the fourth is a $50 bonus. So she's pretty good. We hit that bonus quite often, so she's pretty happy over there. But yeah, so I pay her. I don't pay her per hour. It's like a flat that we establish from day one, and then I pay her a bonus on top of that. Make your car your university. Yeah, I mean that's good. And then yep. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I mean, anyone else have any other questions? If you have anything you want to put in the chat. Otherwise, I think I covered most of it. What is a dialer? A dialer is just someone who will dial like your leads for you to save you like time, essentially. So they'll dial your leads and set you appointments. Um, Okay, there's a couple more. Any standards for recruiting? People you won't recruit. No, I kind of take the same approach Jay does here. I mean, there's probably so many people that are in this business, including myself, that probably at that point in their life probably shouldn't have been in this business. But if you set a standard, you have a culture, right? People can change their lifestyle, they can change their habits to implement within your business. So, in my opinion, I don't have like someone like just because someone is like, in the lowest point of their life doesn't mean they're not you're honestly selfish if you're just hiding the opportunity from them. So I don't have a necessarily like standard like I won't hire you. Yeah, I might be like, hey, like I might run an interview style when I'm asking them questions. But if they're like, hey, this is what like I think this is the opportunity can take me out of the hole I'm in right now. I mean, we had guys there. I'm not the only guy that was in a bunch of debt, in terms of college before this, right? I didn't have a ton of money to my name at the point in time before I came into this business. So I feel like I'm just doing someone an injustice just because they don't. Right. That's why we have things like lead programs. We have things where we're helping guys out that are new, just get them under their feet so they can get rolling. Right now, obviously, we still have a culture where it's like if you're not working hard, just get like kind of get out. Like I'm a believer in that. Like if you're not here to work hard, I don't know what you're doing here. But in terms of just recruiting somebody, I'm not going to say no just because they don't have 10 years of sales experience behind themselves. All right, transfer from selling to building. What does that mindset shift look like? It's from selling to building. There's not necessarily like a transfer. I mean, it's just like it's more hours. You're just taking on more hours in your day. There's no shortcut to hard work in this business, and there's no shortcut to hard work in any business. So, end of the day, right? When I started, not just selling, I started also developing. I told you guys my numbers went up dramatically, right? Because I was doubling down. I was doubling down my habits. It's kind of like when you actually hit like, if you're hitting a month where you actually deposit 50 grand. It's like, what do you are you the person that goes on vacation next month? Or are you the person that obviously doubles down their habits because they know this is a commission-based sales job and nothing's ever freaking guaranteed, right? So if nothing's ever freaking guaranteed, you better be busting your ass next month still, because if you want that to keep going, if you want to continue that the habits that you've already established for yourself, you have to double down. So in terms of that, like obviously I didn't really like do anything. I mean, there wasn't really anything particular other than doubling down my habits, doubling down my systems, and obviously developing more personally to get even better at this business, get even better at sales. Repeat the books. Yeah. So, Psychology of Selling, Brian Tracy, Way of the Wolf, Jordan Belfort, Atomic Habits, and then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes, dialing more age leads, correct. My goal is to build in the opportunity, but on social media, I've done more educational posts for life insurance than promoting my journey, sales, lifestyle. Which one do you recommend? Um, I mean, this is just me personally. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. I've never posted anything about just like educating people on life insurance. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just haven't done it. I think that like, and keep in mind, I literally just turned 23. The average age of our team is 21 to 22, right? If you texted me, hey, life insurance, like, hey, join my life insurance team, I'd probably think you're a dork. Um, but transparently, if you have like this lifestyle and you have these sales that really back up something that's really attractive, and keep in mind, this is coming from a 23-year-old's perspective, right? So if you have all this stuff that backs that up, it's like, oh, wait, that's really way more interesting than just learning like, oh, what an index universal life policy. Like, I mean, personally, like, and I think a lot of our team would probably say the same. It's just not that, it's not as attractive to like someone our age. Like if that's a person you're trying to attract, it's not as attractive. And that's just my personal opinion, of course. But I think what is really attractive is that lifestyle that really backs that up. All right, cool. And what lead type are you running? Which ones do you send to your dialer? I like vets. I really like vets, but I literally run every single lead. I sold a 13,000 America off of like a 2-year-old Ethos lead yesterday or last week. So I will run every single type of lead. There's no such thing as a bad lead. There's no such thing as an old lead. There's no such thing. That's a bunch of BS. I don't care if they fill this out 10 seconds ago or 10 years ago. I really don't care. We'll run it the same way. We'll close them either way, right? End of the day, it's a product that everyone needs, and people are going to be at different positions in their lives at different times. So as long as you know how to build the value, you know how to obviously, connect with the client and build purpose behind the product, you'll be good either way. Just follow you on Instagram. Thank you, brother. What's the third book? Yeah, John got it. There's the 3 books. Cool. And then yeah, if nothing else. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, if you have any extra questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram in the chat. Cool. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me there. But yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was fun.